The Trump administration made significant cuts to USAID funding. These cuts signaled a shift in the United States' approach to Africa. This move has sparked debate. Some see it as a negative turning point for the continent, while others view it as an opportunity for African nations. These cuts impact several key areas, including humanitarian assistance, infrastructure development, and healthcare. Countries like the Democratic Republic of Congo, Ethiopia, and Sudan have been particularly affected. The loss of aid has immediate and long-term implications for these nations. The cuts have also reignited a long-standing debate. This debate centers around the true nature and impact of foreign aid. Critics argue that aid often comes with strings attached. They claim it can hinder true development and create dependency. The reduced aid presents a crucial moment for Africa. It forces a reassessment of the continent's relationship with the West. It also compels a focus on internal solutions and regional cooperation. The immediate impact of the USAID cuts is significant. African nations heavily reliant on this aid are facing immediate challenges. Essential programs are facing funding shortfalls in critical areas like healthcare, education, and infrastructure. The Democratic Republic of Congo, for example, received $1.34 billion annually. The loss of this aid has serious consequences. Healthcare systems, already fragile, are now struggling to cope with the reduced support. Ethiopia, another major recipient, faces similar challenges. The cuts impact its progress in poverty reduction and economic growth. Food security is also a concern. The reduced aid worsens the situation for vulnerable populations. In Sudan, the USAID cuts are exacerbating an already dire humanitarian crisis. The country is grappling with political instability and economic hardship. The reduced aid limits its ability to provide essential services to its citizens. The sudden withdrawal of aid has created a vacuum. African governments are now tasked with filling this gap. This situation underscores the need for sustainable and self-reliant development models. The USAID cuts have also reignited a critical discussion about the nature of foreign aid. Critics argue that aid is not always altruistic. They claim it can be a tool for political influence and economic control. Some argue that aid creates dependency. It discourages recipient countries from pursuing sustainable solutions. They become reliant on external support. This dependency can hinder true development and self-sufficiency. There are also concerns about transparency and accountability. Critics question how aid money is spent. They point to instances of corruption and mismanagement. This lack of transparency undermines the effectiveness of aid programs. Furthermore, some argue that aid can distort local markets. The influx of free or subsidized goods can harm local businesses. It can also create a disincentive for domestic production. These critiques highlight the need for a reassessment of the aid model. A more sustainable and empowering approach is needed. This approach should focus on fostering self-reliance and local ownership. Africa is a continent rich in natural resources. It possesses vast reserves of minerals, oil, and other valuable commodities. Yet this wealth has often failed to translate into widespread prosperity for its people. This paradox is known as the resource curse. One explanation for this curse is the exploitation of African resources by foreign corporations and governments. These entities often secure lucrative deals that benefit them at the expense of African nations. This exploitation leaves African countries with minimal profits from their own resources. For instance, the Democratic Republic of Congo possesses vast cobalt reserves, a crucial component in electronics. However, the country has long struggled with poverty and instability while foreign companies profit from its cobalt mining. The exploitation of African resources is a complex issue rooted in historical power imbalances and unfair trade practices. It is a stark reminder of the need for African nations to gain greater control over their resources and negotiate fairer deals that benefit their citizens. Section 5. A catalyst for change embracing self-reliance. While the USAID cuts present challenges, they also offer an opportunity for Africa to chart a new course. This course is one marked by self-reliance, innovation, and regional cooperation. The reduced dependence on foreign aid can foster innovation and creativity. It can push African nations to develop homegrown solutions to their challenges. This shift can lead to more sustainable and culturally relevant development models. The cuts also highlight the need for greater regional cooperation. African nations can work together to pool resources, share expertise, and create a more integrated and self-sufficient continent. This new path demands strong leadership, good governance, and a commitment to investing in human capital. By prioritizing education, healthcare, and infrastructure, African nations can create a brighter future for their citizens. Section 6. The Shadows of Colonialism, a Legacy of Exploitation. The debate over foreign aid and resource extraction in Africa cannot be separated from the continent's colonial past. Colonialism left a legacy of exploitation, underdevelopment, and dependency. This legacy continues to shape Africa's relationship with the West. Colonial powers extracted vast wealth from Africa, leaving its people impoverished. They established systems of governance and trade that benefited them at the expense of their colonies. These systems continue to impact Africa today. The current global economic order, often criticized as neo-colonial, perpetuates these power imbalances. It allows developed nations to dictate the terms of trade and investment, often to the detriment of developing countries. Overcoming this legacy requires addressing these historical injustices. It demands a fairer global economic system that empowers African nations to control their own destinies. Section 7. The role of international institutions, facilitators or perpetrators. International institutions like the UN, World Bank, IMF, and WTO play a significant role in shaping the global development agenda. However, their role in Africa has been the subject of much debate. Critics argue that these institutions, often dominated by Western nations, perpetuate neo-colonial practices. They argue that these institutions impose policies that benefit developed countries at the expense of developing ones. For instance, structural adjustment programs imposed by the IMF and World Bank in the 1980s and 1990s have been criticized for exacerbating poverty and inequality in many African countries. Furthermore, the WTO's trade rules are often seen as favoring developed nations with established industries, making it difficult for African countries to compete in the global market. Reforming these institutions to make them more democratic, transparent, and accountable is crucial for creating a fairer and more just global order. Section 8. Toward a Brighter Future. The Promise of African Unity. Despite the challenges, there is hope for a brighter future for Africa. This hope lies in the continent's vast potential, its youthful population, and the growing movement for African unity and self-reliance. The African Union, for example, is playing an increasingly important role in promoting regional integration, conflict resolution, and economic development. Moreover, there is a growing recognition among African leaders and citizens that the continent's destiny lies in its own hands. This realization is driving a renewed focus on homegrown solutions, entrepreneurship, and innovation. By investing in education, healthcare, and infrastructure, embracing technology and promoting good governance, African nations can unlock their true potential and create a prosperous and equitable future for all. Section 9. Conclusion, a turning point for Africa? The USAID cuts, while posing immediate challenges, present a pivotal moment for Africa. They serve as a wake-up call for the continent to move away from dependency and embrace self-reliance. This turning point requires a shift in mindset, a move from aid recipient to equal partner. It demands a united Africa that speaks with one voice on the global stage and negotiates fairer deals for its resources and its people. It is a call for a new era of African development, one driven by innovation, cooperation, and a commitment to building a brighter future for all Africans. The path ahead will be challenging, but the potential rewards are immense.